Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, if you haven't heard of Commander's Spellbook, well, make sure you check it out because it is a fantastic resource for Commander players. It is the ultimate search engine for combos in Commander. And actually, I believe it is the resource that EDH Rec even pulls from for their combos when they're tied to a commander. Regardless, they are an invaluable resource for an episode like this one, so again, thank you, Commander Spellbook. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about some commanders with very powerful one-card combos, and you might have seen previous episodes, and I'm obviously not going to be repeating, commanders that I've tackled on those before, so really quick. In that initial episode, I talked about every single one of these commanders, and yes, they all have one-card combos, and actually you might see that there's 2 Nimizits in there, and yes, 2 of them do combo. Regardless, I will not be bringing these up on this episode, obviously. In a similar way, I also had a follow-up episode with new commanders with one-card combos, and obviously with these commanders as well, I am not going to be highlighting them either because I already did. So yeah, it might surprise you, but there are even more commanders out there with one-card combos, so to find out what those are and what they do, well, let's jump into it to find out. So let's start with a brand new commander that is already incredibly popular. That's right, the Shrine Tribal Commander, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. And speaking of popular, actually, the Shrine Token might be even more popular because that card is incredibly expensive because of this commander. Regardless, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin is a 3/4 legendary enchantment creature shrine that costs 3 and a green. It has pay Wooburg, tap, return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And whenever Go-Shintai of Life's Origin or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token, and that's the token I'm talking about that's gotten really expensive. Anyways, the vast majority of Go-Shintai decks focus on that second part, and yeah, when it comes to a Shrine Tribal Commander, that's what you want to do. Get shrines in play, or blink this commander or other shrines to get even more shrine tokens to build up your shrine count, to then get a ton of powerful effects from all your shrines. However, that is not the part that actually combos with this commander, because the first part is. And that ability combos with the card Second Chance. It's an enchantment for 2 and a blue, and its Oracle text reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 5 or less life, sacrifice Second Chance and take an extra turn after this one. Really quick, this card is on the reserve list, so its price might go up with this commander becoming more popular and potentially this combo being used in more of its decks. Regardless, this combo is very straightforward. Obviously, Go-Shintai's ability allows you to pay Wooburg and tap it to return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So obviously what you need to do is to have both of these cards out and have 5 or less life when you hit your upkeep. And there actually are a good amount of cards out there that help you manage your own life total, when it comes to actually going down, that let you just keep paying life over and over again, like some of the cards in my Selenia deck. Regardless, when you've got 5 or less life at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to sacrifice Second Chance for an extra turn. Now, obviously, with a lot of extra turn spells, they exile. Second Chance is an extra turn enchantment, and it does not exile when it hits your graveyard. So then, all you need to do is pay Wooburg, tap Go-Shintai of Life's Origin to return Second Chance from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then you get an extra turn, and on that upkeep, again, you're going to have 5 or less life, so you sacrifice Second Chance, then you do it again, and again, and again. So you get infinite turns, and obviously there are plenty of ways to win from there. Now, before we move on to the next combo, again, I just want to highlight Commander Spellbook is a fantastic resource, and it even breaks down combos in easy-to-understand ways. For example, with this one, it shows off the prerequisites for the combo. You need to have all these permanents on the battlefield, so these two. You have to have 5 or less life, and you have to have Wooburg available every turn. And then it breaks down the extra steps like I mentioned, and then also it shows you the results of the actual combo, and again with this one, it is infinite turns. So it is a fantastic resource, and if you've got any questions on the combos from this episode, or if you want to search for your own combos, make sure you check this site out. Regardless, really quick, the next commander that I want to highlight also combos with second chance, and that is Hanna, Ship's Navigator. Hanna is a 1/2 human artificer that costs 1 white blue, and she has pay 1 white blue, tap, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So this works in a very similar way to Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, whereas Go-Shintai of Life's Origin though gets the enchantment back into play, this one gets it back in your hand. So obviously the prerequisite for this combo is just slightly different. Again, essentially instead of needing Wooburg, you need 3 white, blue, blue to make this combo work. Again, you've got both these on the battlefield, you go to your upkeep with 5 or less life, you sacrifice second chance for an extra turn, then you pay the cost to actually bring it back to your hand with Hanna, so again that's 1 white and a blue, comes back to your hand, then you recast it for 2 and a blue, then you rinse and repeat. And like I mentioned with Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, when you've got infinite turns, there are plenty of ways to win from there. And actually, technically, not infinite turns unless you've got something like an Elixir of Immortality to, prevent yourself from milling. But yeah, you've got plenty of ways to win. Your opponents don't get any turns. Next up, though, let's move on to yet another fantastic combo with Ezuri Claw Progress. Ezuri is a 3/3 Elf Warrior for 2 green-blue. It says, whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, put X+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So the more low power creatures you have coming into play, the more experience counters you get, and the more +1 counters you can put on a creature you control at the beginning of combat. And the card that this commander combos with is Sage of Hours. Sage of Hours is a 1/1 human wizard for 1 and a blue that says, whenever you cast a spell that targets Sage of Hours, put a +1 counter on it. And by removing all +1 counters from Sage of Hours, for each 5 counters moved this way, take an extra turn after this one. So this combo is very straightforward, and one of the prerequisites is that you get 5 experience counters. So whether you've got 4 experience counters, then you cast Sage of Hours, or you already have 5 experience counters with Sage of Hours in play. Regardless, by having 5 experience counters at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can put 5 +1 counters on Sage of Hours. Then you remove those counters from Sage of Hours, and you get an extra turn after this one. And then obviously, again, on that turn, you're going to do the exact same thing. Go to combat, get 5 counters on Sage of Hours, remove them, get an extra turn. Obviously, you can keep doing this over and over again. Your opponents will never get a turn, and again, with infinite turns, you've got plenty of ways to win from there. But now let's move on to a different kind of powerful and spicy combo with Ashaya Soul the Wild. It's a star elemental that costs 3 green, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. It has non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. So turning your creatures essentially into lands is a very interesting effect, especially since it can combo really well with a card like Leyweaver. Leyweaver is a 2/2 human druid that costs 3 and a green, and it's going to partner with Loreweaver, which doesn't matter, but the part that does matter is it can tap to untap 2 target lands. So the combo is pretty straightforward. Again, Leyweaver just inherently isn't a land, but with Ashaya in play, it is. So you tap Leyweaver targeting 2 lands, one of it being itself. So you can untap any other land, let's say a forest, and you also can untap Leyweaver. So you tap Leyweaver to untap itself and a forest, and you can do this again and again and again as many times as you want. And of course, you can untap every single one of your lands as many times as you want as well, and any number of non-token creatures as well. So you generate infinite mana, and obviously you get any other tap effects an infinite number of times from other creatures or other lands. For example, if you've got something like Orenreath the Vastwood in play, you could just tap that infinite number of times to make your creatures infinitely large that came into play this turn. But yeah, if you've already got infinite mana, there are plenty of ways to win from there, so that's probably the simplest way to do it. And actually, Leyweaver isn't the only card that combos with Ashaya in this way, because we also have our Gothian Elder, a 2/2 elf that costs 3 and a green that can tap to untap 2 target lands. So again, another fantastic option, and it works the exact same. One that does work but needs an extra prerequisite to make it work is Crows and Restorer. It's a 1/2 druid that costs 2 and a green, and it has tap untap target land, but it also has Threshold tap untap up to 3 target lands. So this actually can't combo with the Ashaya Soul the Wild, outside of just being able to untap itself infinitely, but if you've got Threshold, which means that you've got 7 or more cards in your graveyard, this does combo. So another fantastic option if you can meet that requirement. Next up though, another fantastically powerful commander that I want to highlight with a great 1-card combo. Let's talk about Zacama Primal Calamity. It's a 9/9 Elder Dinosaur with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample that costs 6 red, green, white. It has, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. By paying 2 in a red, Zacama's gonna deal 3 damage to target creature. By paying 2 in a green, destroys target artifact or enchantment. And by paying 2 in a white, you gain 3 life. Now the part of this card that is combo friendly is that part of when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you untap all lands you control, which is a very powerful effect. Especially when paired with a land itself like Sanctum of Eternity. Sanctum of Eternity is a land that taps for a colorless, but you can also pay 2 and tap to return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand. Activate this ability only during your turn. So this combo is pretty straightforward. Outside of Sanctum of Eternity, you need lands that can tap for a total of 12 mana, which at least will be 9 red, green, white. You use 2 mana to tap Sanctum of Eternity to bounce Zacama back to your hand. Then you cast Zacama, which again is 6 red, green, white. You get Zacama's ETV because you cast it, so you untap all lands you control, but before that happens, you tap your last remaining land for a mana. So then you're in the exact same spot that you were with all your lands untapped, Zacama in play, but you've got 1 extra mana just floating there. So obviously then you can just do this over and over again for infinite mana. And typically you're going to have infinite mana of all colors, because again, as long as you've got enough lands that tap for red, green, and white, you're going to be there. And then with that infinite mana of all colors, you can utilize Zacama's abilities an infinite number of times. So you can wipe out all of your opponent's creatures by dishing out 3 damage at a time to every creature they control. You can also destroy all their artifacts and enchantments, and you can gain an infinite amount of life. Obviously, there are plenty of ways to win without even doing all that because you've got infinite mana. And actually, there is another card that comes with Zacama in a very similar way, and that's going to be Temur Sabertooth. It's a 4/3 cat that costs 2 green, green, and it has pay 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So obviously, the prerequisite is just slightly different. You need the actual mana to actually bounce Zacama back to your hand, but yeah, basically the exact same thing. And my apologies if I'm misremembering this because the episode actually came out 3 years ago, but I believe this exact combo was in my Zacama Primal Calamity episode. But yeah, definitely a powerful one for sure. And speaking of a powerful combo, next up let's talk about Jarad Golgari Lichlord. It's a 2/2 zombie elf that costs black, black, green, green, and it's going to get +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. By paying 1 black, green, you sacrifice another creature, and each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. On top of that, by sacrificing a swamp and a forest, you return Jarad from your graveyard to your hand. The part that does combo, though, is that activated ability that helps you drain opponents based on a creature's power. And the card that this combos with in a very strange way is a very old card with Phyrexian Devourer. This card came out all the way back in Alliances, and yes, it is on the reserve list, so it's already pretty expensive, and it might get even more expensive regardless. Because it's an old card, I'm going to read its Oracle text. It's a Phyrexian construct that costs 6, and when its power is 7 or greater, you sacrifice it. You can exile the top of your library and put X+1 counters on Phyrexian Devourer, where X is the exiled card's mana value. This is a bit of a strange combo, so bear with me. All you need to do, though, is have each of these on the battlefield and 1 black-green available. Okay, and I guess also a good amount of cards in your library if your opponents have a decent amount of life. So what you do is you activate Phyrexian Devourer's ability, and you keep activating it until its death trigger is put on the stack once it hits that 7 power. Now, this is really where technical magical rules come into play. What you're going to be doing is you're going to keep maintaining priority, and then you keep activating Phyrexian Devourer's ability until its power is large enough to wipe out your opponents. So even though that death trigger is on the stack, you can kind of get around that by just maintaining priority and activating it again and again and again and again and again to get more counters on it. And then once its power is sufficiently large enough with the amount of counters on it that you need, you then pay that 1 black-green, sacrifice it to Jarad to win the game. So again, essentially, as long as the total converted mana cost of the cards that are in your deck are more than your opponent's life totals, they are going to be taken out by this combo. Which for the vast majority of scenarios should be an easy requirement to meet. I mean, if everyone's life total is at 40, chances are really high that you've got enough converted mana cost in your deck to get there. Regardless, a combo that works if you know the technical rules of Magic. And another reason why Commander Spellbook is a fantastic resource because it breaks down these combos and how they work for you. Anyways, another combo that I want to highlight is with Morophon the Boundless. It's a 6/6 shapeshifter with changeling that costs 7, and when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. Spells you cast with the chosen type cost Wooburg less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. On top of that, other creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1. Now for the most part, Morophon is built as a tribal commander, but this combo kind of utilizes a different approach. And the part that this combo utilizes is that spell reduction cost. And the other part of this combo is Shrieking Drake. It's an older card, so I'm going to read its Oracle text. It's a 1/1 flying drake that costs a blue, and it says when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. So this combo is pretty simple actually. All you need to do is get Morophon in play, choose Drake, and now your Drakes cost Wooburg less to cast. Which means that Shrieking Drake, which normally again would cost blue, now doesn't cost anything. So you cast Shrieking Drake, and when it comes into play, it's going to bounce a creature you control back to its owner's hand, and you are going to actually choose itself. So you bounce Shrieking Drake back to your hand, then you can cast it again, and again, and again, as many times as you want. So you essentially have infinite ETBs, infinite LTBs, and infinite casts. So obviously, if you've got any kind of a storm card like Grape Shot, you win. Or if you've got a way to take advantage of those ETBs or LTBs, like maybe an Impact Trebors or an Outpost Siege, you win there as well. And there's actually a couple other creatures that I'm going to highlight that work with this kind of a combo, like Horn Kavu. It's a 3/4 Kavu that costs red-green, and when it enters the battlefield, you return a red or green creature you control to its owner's hand. So obviously with Morophon, all you need to do is actually choose Kavu when it comes into play, and then you can just infinitely cast and bounce Horn Kavu back to your hand. One more that I will highlight though is Grinning Ignis, which works in a somewhat similar way. It's a 2/2 elemental that costs 2 and a red, and it has pay a red, return Grinning Ignis to its owner's hand, add colorless red, activate only as a sorcery. So this one, obviously you choose elemental with Morophon, and then this is just going to cost 2 mana. You pay 2 mana to cast it, then you pay a red and you bounce it back to your hand, and you get colorless, and a red. So then with that 2 colorless mana, you're going to actually cast Grinning Ignis again, then with the red mana, you can bounce it back to your hand by activating that ability to get that mana again. Obviously, you can do this as many times as you want, and this one obviously has a different prerequisite where you also need, 2 and a red to actually get this combo going. Regardless, there are actually a lot of other things that combo with Morophon in similar ways, and make sure you check out my entire deck that's revolved around that with my Mad Lad deck episode. I like to call it Tribeless Morophon, and others like to call it Morophon Monuments. So to see why, make sure you check it out. Regardless, next up we've got a partner commander with Kethis Emberclaw Familiar. It's a 1/1 elemental lizard that costs 1 and a red, and again it's got partner, so you can have 2 commanders that both have partner. Kethis says, whenever a commander you control deals combo damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. And the card that this combos with is the incredibly powerful Hatred. Hatred is yet another old card that's on the reserve list. It's an instant 4/3 black, and its Oracle text reads, additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life, target creature gets +X+0 until end of turn. Now, obviously, because Hatred is part of the combo, and Kethis doesn't, have black in its color identity, you need a partner commander that has black in its color identity, of which there are plenty to choose from. And actually, picking an evasive one is probably a really good idea. Because essentially with this combo, all you need to do is have one of your commanders, whether that's Kethis or your other commander, get through on one opponent. So after attacks and blocks are declared and before damage is assigned, you simply just cast Hatred. Then you pay whatever amount of life you need to pay to take out every single one of your opponents. Again, when one of your 2 commanders deals combo damage to an opponent, it's going to deal that much damage to each other opponent. So let's just go through a simple example where Kethis is going to be the commander that's dealing the damage, and let's just say all players are at 40 life. We get Kethis through on one player before damage is assigned. We cast Hatred, paying 39 life to give Kethis plus 39 plus 0, making it a 41, a 40/1 is what I should say. Regardless, it's got 40 power, and again, when it hits that one player, yes, that player is going to be very gone because of commander damage, but the other opponents aren't taking commander damage, but they are going to be taking 40 damage to take their life total down to 0. So again, essentially, as long as you can get a commander through and you've got enough life, you can take out all of your opponents with this very simple combo. Very simple, but pretty expensive. Hatred is a card that I believe is around $45 or so. But now let's move on to a partner commander with a much more budget-friendly combo with Malcolm Keen-Eye Navigator. Malcolm is a 2/2 Siren Pirate with flying that costs 2 and a blue, and it has whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. And again, it's got partner, so you can have 2 commanders if they both have partner. And for this combo to actually be in the deck, you do need to have a commander partner that has red in its color identity. So yeah, Kethis I guess could be your choice if you really want. Regardless, the card that this combos with is Glinthorn Buccaneer. Glinthorn Buccaneer is a 2/4 Minotaur pirate with haste that costs 1 red. It says, whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent, and by paying 1 in a red you discard a card, draw a card. Activate this ability only if Glinthorn Buccaneer is attacking. So this spicy combo is pretty straightforward. You attack with Glinthorn Buccaneer, and you pay 1 in a black to discard a card to draw a card. When you discard that card, Glinthorn Buccaneer is going to ping each opponent for 1. Now again, this is assuming that we've got 3 opponents in play, but again, this combo actually still works with 2. Again though, assuming that we've got 3 opponents in play, each opponent is going to get hit for 1 damage. Since Glinthorn Buccaneer is a pirate, that triggers Malcolm, which again says whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. You dealt damage with a pirate to 3 opponents, so you're going to get 3 treasures. Since you're still attacking with Glinthorn Buccaneer, you can use 2 of those treasures for mana to activate that ability on Glinthorn Buccaneer again. So you discard another card to draw a card, and then you ping each opponent for 1, making 3 more treasures. Essentially, you're going to be dishing out near infinite damage, you make near infinite colored mana, and you've got near infinite looting as well. Your limitation is your library size, and as long as you've got, a bigger library essentially than your opponent's life totals, they're all going to be gone. And also, of course, if you've got an instant speed way to maybe shuffle your library, you can go even further than that. Regardless, yeah, the vast majority of the time, this combo is going to win you the game with the damage alone, and you might not need that infinite mana. But of course, near infinite mana is always a nice thing to have. Regardless, the final combo that I want to highlight today comes with Nethroi, Apex of Death. It's a 5/5 Cat Nightmare Beast that costs 2 white, black, green, but it has a mutate cost of 4, Selesnya, black, black. So essentially, you can cast a spell for its mutate cost, you put it over or under target non-human creature you own, they mutate into the creature on top plus all abilities from under it. Regardless, it's a death-touching lifelinker that has, whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, this combo is really strange, so bear with me. Because the card that this combos with is in a very weird way with Scourge of the Skyclaves. Now, this combination won't actually win you the game, but I just want to highlight it because it's very interesting and spicy, and here's how it works. Scourge of the Skyclaves is a star demon that costs 1 in a black, and it's got kicker for 4 in a black. It has, when you cast this spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life rounded up. But the important part is, Scourge of Skyclaves' power and toughness are each equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players. Now, for this combination to work, what you need is Scourge of Skyclaves in your graveyard. Because another technical magic thing, while this is in your graveyard, that star still comes into play, and its power and toughness are each actually going to be equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players. So again, let's just assume that everyone is at 40 life to make this easier. That means that while this is in your graveyard, it is considered to be a -20, -20. So when you mutate Nethroi, and again you get that trigger, when this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, you're going to be getting back Scourge of Skyclaves for free and then some. Again, the total power is 10 or less the vast majority of the time for Nethroi, but Scourge of Skyclaves changes the math a little bit. Because Scourge of Skyclaves, again in this example, will have a power of -20, that actually is going to count into that total amount of power we can get back. So essentially, instead of being able to get back 10 power in total with Nethroi, we get back 30. Because Scourge of Skyclaves is counting against the actual power that we are bringing back with Nethroi for 20 power in total. Again, this is not a combo that is just going to win you the game outright, but it is a very spicy thing and something that is really weird with just, the weird quirks of Magic rules. So I felt like highlighting it here, and yeah, if you've got a Nethroi deck and you've got a $150 or so, or whatever the price of Scourge of Skyclaves is these days lying around, make sure you throw it in there. And of course, make sure you check out Commander's Spellbook if you haven't already. It is a fantastic resource for Commander players. It's a fantastic search engine for Commander combos, and it helps break down these combos into easy-to-digest ways. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.